The starship Valorian Edge moved silently across the dark space as if it were gliding through an endless sea. Stars shone like cold lamps outside the long windows, and the crew worked in calm order. Every day on the ship felt the same, until the day they found the drifting escape pod. Rendak, a young alien officer with sharp eyes and a serious mind, stood on the main deck when the alert came through. His species, the Varnell, were known for strict discipline, and Rendak followed every rule like a second heartbeat. When the captain announced that a life signal had been detected inside a small pod near the ship's path, Rendak was the first to volunteer for inspection duty. The pod was brought aboard and placed inside the quarantine bay. It was old, scratched by space dust, and marked by symbols that the crew could not read. A faint hum came from its surface, as if the pod still had a little life left inside after a long journey. Rendak stood outside the transparent barrier as engineers opened the pod. The door slid up with a soft hiss, releasing cold air and a strange smell of old metal. Inside, lying peacefully as if asleep, was a human woman. The crew stared in surprise. Humans were extremely rare in this part of the galaxy. Many species had never met one, only heard stories, some inspiring, some intimidating, and some unbelievable. Rendak himself had only seen humans in old holographic lessons back at the academy. The woman opened her eyes slowly. She did not panic, did not shout, did not look confused. Instead, she sat up with surprising calm. She looked around the quarantine bay, as if she already understood she was safe. When her gaze met Rendak's through the barrier glass, she simply nodded, acknowledging his presence. The engineers scanned her for injuries, but she seemed mostly fine, tired, but strong. When they asked for her name, she answered in a soft, steady voice. "My name is Lyra." She did not give a family name, a rank, or a home world. Just Lyra. Rendak's suspicion began immediately. Why would a human be traveling alone, far from any known human territory? Why did she not offer more information? And why did she show no fear? When the quarantine barrier lifted and she stepped into the clean light of the medical bay, Rendak noticed something else. A sealed case in her hand. It was made of an unknown alloy, dark and smooth, with glowing lines crossing its surface like tiny rivers of light. The scans showed nothing harmful inside, but they also could not penetrate the material. "Please hand over the case for examination," Rendak requested formally. Lyra held the case closer. "I cannot," she said. Her voice was calm, but her tone was final. Rendak stiffened. "We cannot permit unknown items to move freely on the ship." "I understand," she replied gently. "But this must stay with me. I assure you it is not dangerous to your ship. It is only a part of my past." Rendak did not trust those words. A human carrying a sealed object that even ship scanners could not read. There was too much mystery. Captain Marin, an older Varnell with experience carved into every line on his face, stepped forward. He observed Lyra for a long moment before speaking. "We will allow you to keep the case," he said carefully, "for now. But you must stay under observation until we understand your situation." Lyra bowed her head slightly. "I appreciate your kindness." Rendak did not consider it kindness. He considered it a risk. The first few hours aboard the Valorian Edge were quiet. Lyra walked calmly through the halls when escorted, answered questions politely when asked, and watched everything with careful eyes. She seemed alert but never nervous, curious but never intrusive. Rendak followed her closely. His duty was clear: identify her origin, her purpose, and any threat she might represent. Yet something about her did not match the image of a threat. She moved like someone who had seen much and survived much, but her presence felt peaceful, almost gentle. Still, he kept his guard up. When they reached the observation deck, Lyra paused to look at the stars. Her expression softened. Rendak noticed the faint, almost invisible lines on her gloves, patterns worn into the fabric from years of use. "You seem familiar with starships," Rendak remarked, watching her carefully. Lyra nodded. "I traveled often long ago." "Alone?" "Not always," she said softly, as if remembering something far away. Her answers always gave just enough information to sound truthful, yet not enough to satisfy any deeper question. Rendak found it frustrating. "What happened to your crew?" he asked. Lyra turned her eyes away from the stars. "I do not know where they are now." Rendak felt a flicker of sympathy, but he buried it quickly. Sympathy clouded judgment. Later, Rendak brought her to a small resting room assigned to guests. The lights were warm, and a gentle hum filled the air from the climate system. Lyra placed her sealed case beside her bed. She touched it gently, almost like greeting an old friend. Rendak stood by the door. "We will continue our questions tomorrow." Lyra looked at him calmly. "You think I am hiding something?" "You are hiding many things," he replied. She nodded slowly. "Yes, but only because I need time to understand where I am and who I can trust." Her honesty was unexpected. Rendak hesitated, unsure how to respond. "You should rest," he said finally. "We will speak again in the morning." "Thank you," she replied, and there was no fear in her voice, only a quiet strength. The next morning, the ship's alarms echoed through the halls. Something was wrong. Rendak rushed from his station as reports came in. A minor system malfunction was affecting the lower deck. Nothing dangerous, but enough to cause trouble if ignored. What surprised him was what he saw when he arrived. Lyra was already there. She stood near a technician who had tripped over loose cables while trying to fix a panel. Before the technician could fall, Lyra moved with incredible speed, catching him by the arm and steadying him with graceful precision. She helped him back to his feet gently. "You are injured," she said. "Sit down for a moment." The technician, surprised and embarrassed, nodded and sat. Rendak reached the scene just in time to witness the last part. His eyes narrowed. "How did you get here so fast?" he asked. "I heard the call," Lyra answered simply. "That does not explain how you moved across the ship before trained crew members arrived." She did not defend herself. She only said, "Old habits, old habits." That phrase stayed in Rendak's mind long after he escorted her back. Most people froze during alarms. Few reacted with calm skill, and almost none moved faster than trained officers. What was she trained for? And who trained her? When Rendak returned to the control deck, he was more certain than ever. Lyra was not an ordinary human. Later that day, Lyra requested permission to visit the starship's viewing balcony. She said she needed fresh air, even though air was the same everywhere on the ship. Captain Marin allowed it, with Rendak assigned to accompany her. As they walked toward the balcony, the ship shifted into a new star system. The windows displayed a bright golden star, surrounded by swirling clouds of dust and beautiful rings of frozen particles. Lyra stopped, her eyes focused sharply. "That is not natural movement," she whispered. Rendak looked out. "What do you see?" "The dust cloud. Look closely." She pointed at the pattern. "It is moving against the wind of the solar waves." Rendak squinted. She was right. Something was disturbing the cloud. He opened a channel. "Control deck, this is Officer Rendak. Scan the star's dust ring for unusual activity." The response came. "We are detecting traces of energy, very faint, almost hidden." Lyra watched silently. Captain Marin arrived a moment later. "Possible enemy activity?" he asked. "Possible," Rendak answered, "but we do not know the cause." Lyra looked at the dust ring again. "I have seen this before." Rendak froze. Captain Marin asked gently, "Where?" Lyra's expression grew distant, as if she were remembering a time long past. "In old conflict zones," she said softly, "before everything changed." Rendak felt a chill run along his arms. This human woman, who refused to explain her past, who carried an unreadable sealed case, and who moved with training beyond normal, had recognized a danger before the ship's sensors did. Who was she? And what history did she carry? Rendak questioned her identity more than ever, but he did not yet know that the answer was hidden inside that sealed case, a blade marked by galactic wars long forgotten. The star system around the Valorian edge glowed softly as the ship continued its slow path through the dust ring. Everyone on board felt a quiet tension, as if something unseen was watching them from the golden light around the star. Even the most experienced crew members moved with extra caution. Rendak stood at his post with a focused mind. The faint energy traces inside the dust ring were still too weak to understand. They did not form any pattern the scanners recognized. But Lyria's reaction lingered in Rendak's thoughts. She had identified the disturbance before any machine or officer did. No ordinary traveler could do that. Captain Marin stepped onto the deck and gave clear instructions. "Stay alert. We do not yet know if the energy is natural or artificial. Prepare the ship for a possible defense." Rendak nodded and checked his console again. Readings danced across the screen like tiny lights, each one showing a small part of the star's behavior, but none of them explained the pattern Lyria had seen. He felt pressure in his chest, part curiosity, part caution. Humans were known for unpredictability in historical records. Some humans were peaceful and creative. Others were fierce and brave during wars long past. But all humans were said to be adaptable. And Lyria seemed to fit every description from those stories. Lyria sat in her small guest room with the sealed case resting beside her. The dark metal of the case was smooth and silent. She touched its surface gently with her fingers, tracing the faint glowing lines. Her eyes softened for a moment, filled with a memory she did not speak about. She took a deep breath and stood up when she heard the soft tone of the door. Rendak entered after receiving her permission. He stepped inside with the same firm posture he always carried, but today there was something else in his eyes. Not suspicion alone, something closer to confusion mixed with caution. "We need to ask more questions," he said simply. Lyria nodded. "I expected that." Rendak tried to keep his voice neutral. "How did you recognize the energy movement earlier? It is not common knowledge." Lyria did not answer immediately. She looked down at the sealed case, then back at Rendak. "In the past," she said slowly, "I traveled through many conflict zones. I learned to see signs before danger arrived." "That is not an answer," Rendak replied, though his tone stayed calm. "Many species studied conflicts, yet you reacted faster than our sensors." Lyria looked at him with steady eyes. "Sometimes we learn things not from study, but from experience." Rendak felt a small spark of frustration. "Experience from what? What battles? What history did you live through?" She remained silent, and the quiet space between them felt heavy. "I am not ready to speak about everything," she said gently. Rendak crossed his arms. "If you want us to trust you, you must trust us first." Her expression softened. "Trust is not something I lost lightly. It is something I lost over time." Rendak did not know how to respond. Her words carried weight, as if she spoke of events far beyond his understanding. After a moment, Lyria looked at the sealed case again. "What I carry is part of the explanation, but it cannot be opened now." Rendak stepped closer. "Why? What is inside?" "A memory," Lyria whispered, "and a responsibility." Rendak frowned, not understanding. But before he could ask more, an alert sounded through the ship, a distress signal, a real one. Captain Marin's voice came through the speaker. "All officers, report to the main deck. We have received an emergency call from Outpost 72. Rendak's attention snapped toward the door. Lyra stood up as well. "May I come?" she asked. Rendak hesitated. She was still a mystery, still untrusted, but her quick reaction earlier proved she might be useful. "Follow me," he said finally. On the main deck, holographic screens showed the damaged outpost. Fires burned on the ground and several buildings were destroyed. There were signs of recent attacks from unknown forces. The signal came from the outer edges of the star system, not far from the dust ring. Captain Marin studied the images. "We must respond. The outpost reports ongoing trouble. Automated drones remain active in the attack, but no command signals have been detected." Rendak asked, "Should we prepare for battle?" "Not yet. We will investigate first." Lyra stepped closer to the screen. Her face showed no fear, only calm observation. "That attack pattern," she murmured. "I have seen something like it." Rendak turned to her quickly. "Where?" "Years ago," she said, eyes fixed on the burning outpost. "When smaller groups tried to imitate old war machines." Rendak stiffened. "You fought in those conflicts?" "I lived through them," she corrected softly. Captain Marin looked at her with interest. "What do you recommend?" Lyra hesitated as if unsure whether she should speak. "If drones are involved, examine the ground first. They often hide more than they show." The captain listened carefully, then nodded. "We will send a landing team. Officer Rendak, you will lead them." Rendak straightened. "Yes, Captain." Lyra looked at him. "I can assist." Rendak opened his mouth to decline, but the captain spoke first. "Very well, Lyra, you may join the team. But stay under Rendak's supervision at all times." Lyra bowed her head. "Understood." Rendak felt a strange mix of relief and tension. He did not fully trust her, but a small part of him knew she might be important. The landing craft touched down near the outpost with a soft tremor. Dust rose around the group as they stepped onto the ground. The air smelled of burned metal and cooling circuits. Broken drone parts lay scattered across the area like fallen insects. Rendak moved carefully, scanning the surroundings. Lyra stayed close, her eyes scanning everything with quiet focus. They walked through the main gate of the outpost. Sparks crackled from damaged towers, and the wind carried traces of smoke. No enemies appeared, but something about the quiet felt unnatural. One of the younger officers whispered, "It feels like the attack only paused." Rendak nodded. "Stay alert." Lyra pointed at a building with half its walls destroyed. "Look there." The team approached the spot. On the ground, half buried in dust, was a small drone core still glowing faintly. Rendak lifted it carefully. "It is not any model I recognize," he said. Lyra studied the core. "It uses mixed technology. Some parts look new, others old." "Old?" Rendak repeated. She nodded. "From old battle sites." Rendak felt a chill. "How do you know that?" "I saw similar pieces in places long forgotten," she answered. Her knowledge again sounded far beyond what a normal traveler should know. They continued deeper into the outpost. Near the center courtyard, they discovered a cluster of active drones hidden beneath debris. Their lights flashed weakly, as if waiting for a command that never arrived. The moment the team approached, the drones powered up. Rendak shouted, "Defensive positions!" The drones lifted into the air with sharp movements. They were small, fast, and equipped with tools meant to disable machines, not living beings. But they moved aggressively toward the landing craft. Lyra stepped forward swiftly. "Push them back from the ship. They are trying to disable it." Her voice held clear certainty. Rendak followed her lead without hesitation. The team worked quickly, using focused light beams to block the drone's movement. Lyria's reaction time was astonishing. She moved before the drones even completed their rising pattern. When the last drone fell to the ground, Rendak turned to her. "How did you know what they would do?" She brushed dust from her gloves. "That is their usual tactic." "Usual where?" Rendak pressed. "Where did you learn this?" Lyria looked at him quietly. "In battles that many have forgotten." Before Rendak could question further, the ground shook softly. Something else was coming, but this time Lyria looked calm. "This is not the main danger," she said. "Something else is near, something bigger." Rendak felt tension rise through him. "How do you know?" She met his eyes. "Because I have seen this pattern before, many times." Her voice carried the weight of a hidden past, one that seemed connected to conflicts long buried in galactic history. And Rendak realized something important. She was not just a survivor. She was someone who had lived through events others only read about. Her sealed case, her quiet strength, her unusual knowledge. Everything pointed toward a history deeper than any simple explanation. He still did not know who she really was. But he was certain of one thing now. Whatever they were about to face, Lyria understood it far better than anyone else aboard the Valorian Edge. Dust swirled around the courtyard of Outpost 72 as Rendak and his team stood in a tight formation. The ground trembled softly beneath their feet. Something large was moving below the surface, something that responded to the activation of the hidden drones they had just defeated. The officers looked around nervously. The outpost was already damaged, and the strange silence around them made everything feel even more tense. Smoke drifted in thin lines across the air, carrying the faint smell of burnt wires and broken circuits. Rendak tightened his grip on his scanner. "Everyone hold position," he ordered. "We need to identify what is coming." Lyria stood a few steps ahead of him, calm and steady. Her eyes followed the broken lines of stone and fallen structures, searching for small details others might overlook. She did not step back, even as the ground shook more violently. Rendak watched her carefully. There was something controlled in the way she breathed, something trained in the way she stood. She looked almost like a soldier preparing for a familiar situation, not a traveler who had simply stumbled into danger. One of the younger officers stepped closer to Rendak and whispered, "Why is she not afraid?" Rendak did not know how to answer. He wondered the same thing. The ground suddenly cracked open, splitting the dusty floor in a straight line. Small bits of stone fell into the darkness below. A low hum rose from the crack, followed by a strange mechanical clicking sound. Lyria's eyes narrowed. "It is a burrow unit," she said quietly. Rendak turned sharply. "A what?" "A machine that hides under the surface," she explained. "It waits until drones report trouble. Then it rises." Rendak felt his chest tighten. "How do you know this?" Lyria did not answer. The ground shook harder, cutting off any reply. A metallic shape rose from the crack with slow, heavy movement. Dust fell from its surface as it climbed higher, supported by thick legs that dug into the soil. Its body was round and armored, covered in layered plates like shells stacked on top of one another. A glowing red line ran across its middle, pulsing slowly. The officers stepped back in alarm. Rendak shouted, "Ready defense!" The burrow machine turned toward the group. Its plates shifted, opening small vents. From each vent, streams of tiny drones began to emerge, smaller than the ones from before, but faster. The air filled with a high-pitched buzzing sound. Rendak raised his scanner, but Lyria lifted her hand toward him. "Those drones are distractions," she said. "Aim for the red line. That is the core seam." Rendak hesitated for a second. Lyria spoke as if she had fought these machines many times. He looked back at the burrow unit and then at his team. "Everyone," he commanded, "target the center line." The first wave of patterns fired across the machine's surface, but the burrow unit shifted its plates, deflecting the hits. The small drones rushed at the officers, forcing them to defend themselves. Rendak stepped backward while pushing away a small drone. "It is not working!" Lyra reached for her sealed case, which she had kept close from the moment she stepped off the ship. She placed it on the ground gently, as if performing a quiet ritual. The officers barely noticed. They were too busy trying to protect themselves from the swarming drones. Rendak glanced toward her and froze. Lyra touched the glowing lines on the case. The surface responded with a soft pulse. She pressed her palm to the center, and the case unlocked with a deep, low tone that seemed to echo inside the cracked courtyard. The lid opened smoothly. Inside was a blade, long, elegant, and beautifully crafted. Its metal shimmered with colors not seen on ordinary weapons. The blade's surface carried etched marks, glowing faintly in patterns like constellations stretched across the night sky. They were symbols, carved with precision, each representing a different battle or event. Rendak stared, stunned. The younger officers stared too. Everyone seemed to stop breathing for a moment. Lyra lifted the blade with both hands. Even the air around it felt different, as if the weapon carried a memory of distant worlds. The light from the burning buildings reflected off its surface, making it look almost alive. Rendak spoke in a shocked whisper. "That blade. I have seen its markings in old archives." Lyra's voice remained calm. "Then you know what it means." "It means," Rendak said slowly, "you were part of the Galactic War Front." The Galactic War Front, a name from history. A conflict that had ended long before Rendak was born. Only a handful of warriors survived those battles, and most of them vanished into unknown regions afterward. No one alive was supposed to carry a blade like that. Yet Lyra stood there, holding one. Before Rendak could ask more, the burrow unit turned its attention toward Lyra. It sensed the energy of the weapon and shifted its plates quickly, preparing for a stronger attack. Lyra stepped forward with quiet confidence. Her movements were smooth, almost graceful, but filled with controlled strength. She lifted the blade as if it were weightless. Rendak's team looked on, frozen in shock. The small drones swarmed toward her, but her blade cut through them in silent arcs of light. Each motion was precise, each step measured. She did not waste energy. She did not miss. It was as if she had trained her entire life for this moment. Rendak felt his chest tighten. He had never seen such skill. It was not wild or aggressive. It was disciplined, focused, efficient. The movements of someone who had survived the most dangerous corners of the galaxy. The burrow unit focused on her now, pulling back its smaller drones. Its plates shifted and locked into a defensive form. Lyra paused for only a breath. Then she moved. She dashed forward, closing the distance quickly. The burrow machine tried to strike, but she slid beneath one of its legs with unbelievable timing. The blade traced a sharp line across the glowing red seam. A bright flash erupted. The machine trembled. Its plates began to open and close rapidly, confused by the sudden strike. Lyra stepped behind it and struck again, this time with a clean downward arc across the seam. The red line flickered. The burrow unit let out a loud metallic groan. Its legs collapsed one by one, and the machine crashed to the ground with a heavy thud. Dust shot into the air in a thick cloud. The officers stepped back, shielding their faces. When the dust settled, the burrow unit lay silent and broken. Lyra stood beside it, breathing steadily, her blade reflecting the golden light of the sun above. Rendak approached carefully, still in shock. "You destroyed it. Alone." She wiped a bit of dust from the blade's edge. "It was not difficult once I saw the seam." Rendak stared at her in disbelief. Only high warfront soldiers were trained to see that seam. That knowledge was lost centuries ago. Lyra gave a small nod. Not lost. Just forgotten by many. Rendoc stepped closer. Then you fought in those wars? She looked at him silently for a moment. The weight of old memories shone faintly in her eyes. I survived them, she said quietly. Rendoc felt speechless. The stories of the galactic warfront described humans who fought fiercely, traveled far beyond their worlds, and carried unique weapons marked by the stars themselves. But those stories were ancient, almost legendary. And now, standing in front of him, was a woman who carried one of those weapons. She closed the case and locked it again, as if sealing away a part of her past. The younger officers whispered among themselves. None of them could hide their shock. Rendoc turned to his team and raised his voice. The threat is gone. Secure the area. Look for any remaining signals. The officers moved quickly, but their eyes kept drifting back to Lyra. Rendoc approached her once more. Why did you hide this from us? She looked at the damaged outpost quietly. Because weapons like this bring questions, and I was not ready to answer them. Rendoc crossed his arms. You will have to answer them now. Lyra met his gaze with calm acceptance. Yes, I know. She looked once more at the broken burrow unit. The past has found me again, she whispered. Rendoc realized then that Lyra was not just a traveler. She was a survivor of a forgotten war, a warrior who carried history etched into her blade. And he understood something important. Whatever danger was rising in this star system, it was connected to the old battles Lyra once fought. The mystery around her was only beginning to unfold. The station remained quiet, but the air held a sharp tension that everyone could feel. The storm outside had faded, leaving only soft vibrations through the metal walls. Inside the main hall, Lyra stood near a long observation window, her eyes fixed on the swirling lights of the nebula. She looked calm, yet something in her posture showed she was preparing herself for what came next. Rel entered the hall slowly, unsure if she wanted to be disturbed. He watched her for a moment. Her shadow stretched across the polished floor, thin and still, like someone who had waited too long to reveal something hard to speak about. He cleared his throat gently. Lyra, the council has finished their review. She did not turn around. And? What did they decide? Rel stepped closer, but not too close. They want to speak with you. All of them. They said they need your record confirmed before they can decide anything. Lyra nodded slowly. So it begins. Even without looking at him, she knew his worry. She could almost hear his thoughts on whether humans could be trusted, on whether she had been hiding something dangerous all along. But she also sensed something else in him now, a desire to understand rather than judge. Rel hesitated. Lyra, are you ready to tell them everything? She finally looked at him, her expression steady. I must. If I stay silent, others will decide what my story means. But if I speak, at least the truth will belong to me. Rel admired her courage, though he did not fully understand it. He motioned for her to follow him. As they walked through the long corridor toward the council chamber, station personnel watched quietly. Whispers floated through the hall, all soft but full of curiosity and concern. Humans were still new in this region of the galaxy. Many had only heard rumors about them, rumors of unpredictable bravery or unusual resilience. Lyra heard the whispers but ignored them. She had walked through far worse halls before, in places where people doubted her race entirely. She focused instead on the steady sound of her boots and the soft hum of the corridor lights. When they reached the council doors, Rel stopped. I cannot enter with you, he said softly. This part you must handle alone. Lyra smiled faintly. Do not worry. I have faced larger rooms with colder eyes. He nodded, though worry remained on his face. I will wait right here. Lyra placed her hand gently on the door panel. It glowed and slid open with a calm hiss. Inside, the chamber was circular and wide. Blue light projected from the ceiling, casting a soft glow across the central floor. 12 council members sat around the edges, each representing a different system or species. Their faces were unreadable, though their eyes were sharp. Lyra stepped into the center. The door closed behind her. A tall counselor with silver patterns on her skin leaned forward. Human Lyra Arden, you have been summoned to clarify questions regarding your blade, your experience, and your possible involvement in past interstellar conflicts. Lyra bowed her head respectfully. I understand. Another counselor spoke, this one with a voice like soft metal. We do not accuse you, but the marks on your blade are old and come from regions far beyond your claimed travel path. We request an explanation. Lyra took a breath. My blade carries marks from battles I did not choose. But they are not marks of destruction. They are marks of survival. The room grew still. She continued. Before I came to your stars, I traveled with a group of explorers. We moved from sector to sector, studying ancient ruins and mapping forgotten paths. We never sought conflict, but trouble found us many times. Some factions believed humans should not travel so far. Others simply wanted to control everything we discovered. A counselor leaned back thoughtfully. You speak of the outer fringe. Yes, Lyra replied. A place where small groups hide old knowledge and where many believe humans should stay out. Another counselor asked, And your blade? What of those marks? Lyra lifted the blade slowly from its sheath and held it with both hands. This blade was my companion when I had no one else. Each mark tells of a moment I had to protect others. My group was small and many depended on me. I never used the blade to harm without reason. I used it to guard life, never to take it without need. She traced one faint line on the edge. This mark is from a defense wall on a crumbling outpost. The outpost was collapsing and I cut through debris to free trapped workers. She touched another mark. This one came from a machine that malfunctioned during a rescue mission. I had to stop it before it destroyed half the station. She paused at the deepest mark. And this is from the last moment I saw my group. A fleet attacked us. Thinking humans carried dangerous secrets. My group scattered. I stayed behind to hold the attackers back long enough for the others to escape. The chamber fell silent. Every council member listened closely. Lyra lowered her blade. I am not a threat to your station. I am only a traveler looking for a place to rest, to rebuild, and to live without running. The council members exchanged quiet looks. After a long moment, the silver-patterned counselor spoke again. Your explanation is detailed and consistent with our limited knowledge of the outer fringe, but we must confirm one final matter. Lyra waited. The counselor asked gently, Are any groups still searching for you? Lyra sighed softly. I do not know. It has been many seasons since the incident, but the galaxy is wide and memories fade. Another counselor added, If you stay here, danger might reach us. Lyra nodded. I understand your concern. If you fear that my presence brings risk, I will leave. I do not want harm to come to this place. The counselors murmured among themselves. After several long minutes, the silver-patterned counselor leaned forward again. We appreciate your honesty. You may remain on the station for now, but we ask for your cooperation if further questions arise. Lyra bowed slightly. I agree. The chamber's lights dimmed, signaling the end of the meeting. As Lyra stepped back toward the door, she felt a small weight lift from her heart. She had spoken the truth, and they had listened, not with fear or anger, but with calm judgment. When she exited the chamber, Rel stood immediately. Well? He asked nervously. Lyra offered a tired smile. They accepted my explanation. Rel let out a breath he didn't know he was holding. That is good news. Lyra nodded, but her eyes carried a quiet worry. It is good for now, but the past has long shadows. If something follows me from the outer fringe, this station may be tested. Rel walked beside her as they returned to the main corridor. We will face whatever comes. You are not alone here. Those simple words warmed her more than she expected. For the first time in a long while, she felt she could trust someone again. As they walked, the corridor lights flickered, not from damage, but from an incoming energy signal. A faint tremor spread through the floor. Rel paused. That is unusual. Lyra looked toward the nearest window. Outside, in the distant stars, a small shape appeared. It was far away. Almost too small to see, but its movement was deliberate. Lyra narrowed her eyes. She knew that shape, and her heart tightened. The past had not forgotten her after all. A soft alarm echoed through the station. It was not loud, not urgent, but it carried a message everyone understood. Something unknown was entering their range. Rel and Lyra stopped where they stood as the corridor lights turned a calm shade of amber. Rel's eyes widened. This signal, it is not from any nearby system. Lyra remained silent. She already knew. The distant shape she had seen earlier was no ordinary traveler. It moved with steady precision, as if following a trail that only she could feel. Rel, she said softly. We must go to the control deck. Without hesitation, Rel guided her through the twisting passages. Crew members stepped aside as they passed, watching them with a mix of curiosity and concern. The atmosphere felt heavier with every step, like the station itself sensed something from far away was about to reach them. When they reached the deck, large screens displayed the incoming craft, still far but clearer now. It was long and slender, built for quiet travel, not for battle. Its surface carried faint patterns, almost like old scars. Lyra recognized those markings instantly. A whisper left her lips. Solara? Rel glanced at her. You know this ship? Lyra nodded slowly. I traveled with its crew many seasons ago. They were part of my explorer group. If Solara has come here, something serious must have happened. The officer at the controls turned toward Lyra. The ship is requesting permission to send a message. No direct contact yet. Rel looked at the officer. Open the audio channel. The officer tapped a command. A moment later, a soft voice filled the room, tired, gentle, and familiar to Lyra. Lyra, if you are alive, please respond. We have followed your fragment signal across 3 sectors. We mean no trouble. We only seek you. Lyra's eyes softened. She stepped closer to the console and pressed the response key. This is Lyra. I hear you, she said. Her voice trembled slightly. Who speaks? After a pause, the voice replied, It is Aris. Lyra closed her eyes for a moment. Aris had been one of the youngest members of her explorer group, quiet, thoughtful, and loyal. Hearing his voice again filled her with emotions she had pushed deep down for a long time, but she had learned to stay calm. She addressed the officer kindly. Please open a visual channel. Within seconds, the main screen lit up. Aris appeared, older, thinner, and clearly weary, but alive. Behind him, other shapes moved, the rest of the crew. Their expressions lit up when they saw Lyra standing on the deck. Aris spoke first, relief clear in his tone. Lyra, they told us you were gone. Some even believed you were taken by the attack. We searched everywhere. We followed every trace. Lyra swallowed. And now you found me. Aris nodded. Yes, but the news we bring, it is not peaceful. Rel stepped forward. What news? Aris looked at him carefully, then back to Lyra. The group that attacked us, The same one you stayed behind to stop. They have expanded. They believe your blade holds something valuable. They think the marks on it reveal a map to an ancient place. Lyra's eyebrows tightened. A map? That is impossible. My blade carries nothing other than memories. Eris shook his head gently. I know, but they do not believe logic. They believe stories, and they believe you still carry something important. Rel looked at Lyra, unsure. Is this true? Could the blade hold something hidden? Lyra shook her head firmly. No, but sometimes belief is more powerful than truth. If they think I carry something, they will chase me. Eris continued. Their scouts have been moving through nearby systems. We detected their signal not long after reaching this region. They may already be on their way. A quiet hush filled the deck. Rel straightened his posture. If danger is coming, we must prepare. This station is not a fortress, but we will do what we can. Lyra turned to him, touched by his calm determination. I never wanted to bring trouble here. Rel gave a small, confident smile. And yet you are here, so we stand with you. Aris added softly, Lyra, if staying on this station puts it at risk, come with us. We can keep moving. We can hide better than a large station. Lyra looked between the two, Rel, who had shown her trust she did not expect, and Aris, who represented her past, her lost group, her old journey. The decision weighed heavily on her. For the first time in many seasons, Lyra felt torn, not because of danger, but because she had found a place where she felt seen, a place where her past did not decide her value. She took a deep breath. No, I will not run again. Both Rel and Aris looked surprised. Lyra continued. All my life, I survived by moving from one place to another, but survival is not the same as living. If my past comes here, I will face it here. Aris hesitated. Then we will stand with you. You saved us many times. Now it is our turn. Rel nodded. You are not alone. The room felt warmer, almost brighter. The officer interrupted. New signal detected. A fast-moving craft approaching. Unknown origin. Lyra's expression hardened. They have found me. Rel spoke quickly. Officer, prepare communication lock. Activate shield protocols. And send a message to all station divisions. This is a precaution, not a threat announcement. The officer nodded and started issuing commands. Lyra watched the screen. A second ship came into view. Dark, quiet, and sharp-edged. Its movement looked like a shadow sliding across the stars. Aris muttered, That is one of their scouts. The station lights shifted to a deeper amber. Lyra stepped forward. Open a channel. Rel looked at her. Are you sure? Yes, she said calmly. Running will not change anything. The channel opened with a brief crackle. A cold voice responded. We have tracked a human traveler who carries something that belongs to us. Hand her over, and we will leave your station unharmed. Rel answered with a steady tone. We do not hand over people. We ask questions before believing demands. The voice replied sharply, You protect someone you do not understand. She carries a blade that holds the path to a place of great power. Lyra spoke clearly. My blade carries only my past, nothing more. The voice paused. Then, almost growling, it replied, Then prove it. Come with us, alone. Rel shook his head immediately. She will not go anywhere alone. Lyra raised her hand gently. Let me speak, Rel. The channel remained open. Lyra stood tall. If you want me, you must face the truth. My blade is not a map. Your belief is wrong. But if you want to speak, I will meet you. Not as a prisoner, not as a target, but as someone who wants to end this chase. The voice hesitated. Then come aboard. Bring witnesses. We will talk. Lyra glanced at Rel and Aris. I will go, but not alone. Rel stepped forward. I will come with you. Eris nodded. So will I. Lyra felt a strange comfort. For the first time, she had two worlds beside her, her past and her present. The three boarded a small shuttle. As they lifted off toward the dark ship, Lyra looked at them both. "If this ends today," she said quietly, "I want you to know that you gave me something I had forgotten. Trust." Rel smiled gently. "And you gave us something too, courage," Aris added, "and hope." When they reached the enemy ship, there was no battle, no trap, only words. The misunderstanding was deep, but when Lyra revealed the truth, when she offered peace instead of fear, even the opposing group learned something unexpected. Humans were not what the galaxy believed. They were not careless wanderers. They were not threats. They were reminders that strength did not come from force alone. It came from choosing to stand, to speak, and to face the past with open eyes. When the shuttle returned to the station, peace had been agreed upon. The chase was over. Lyra stepped onto the deck, looked at Rel, then at the port window showing the wide stars. For the first time in many seasons, she felt free. And as the station resumed its calm rhythm, one truth settled quietly in her heart. Her identity was no longer a question. It was a story, one she chose to carry forward, not as a shadow, but as a light.